Our final speaker for today is a veteran of the .com era. He was the CTO of not one, but two .coms. He's the creator of Tiddlywiki, which is an open source wiki project. And he was the founder of Osmosoft, which runs Tiddlywiki and was recently acquired by BT Tech Design. Please welcome Jeremy Ruston.
So as you heard, I work for BT, where I run open source innovation. I joined BT because I ran this tiny little open source project called Tiddlywiki, which was acquired by BT in May of last year in a somewhat surprising acquisition that involved them buying a company with one member of staff, no revenues, no customers, and best of all, no IP, because in the classic open source world, I'd already signed it over to a non-profit foundation. So why did I join BT, you might ask? And it was because the way that they stated things to me was that they saw innovation happening at the edges of open source communities, and they wanted to understand how that happened. I was amazed that the language that they were using was not about saving money by reducing license fees, but mentioned the two key words for me, community, and the innovation that we see happening at the edges of communities. And both of those qualities are alive and well in Tiddlywiki. So, joining BT though, it still seems like enterprises are a very unlikely bedfellow for open source. Open source would, for me, be about sharing data and ideas, about being transparent and public, about making progress together, whereas enterprises are almost founded on the idea of hoarding ideas and data, keeping things in their private citadel. You might think of enterprises as being the physical embodiment of proprietary software. So, me and my boss, JP Rangaswamy, are amongst the believers in BT who think that we need to become more like an open source community if we're going to succeed in the future. And JP uses an unusual analogy about airports to illustrate this when we talk internally. And I guess most people in the room probably flew here, apart from the lucky people who already live in Portland. The taking off and landing is almost a sideshow. When you visit an airport today, you wander past shops, a lot of shops. There's a rumour that the new Terminal 5 at Heathrow contains more shops than, more square foot of retail space than the biggest shopping centre in Britain. I don't think it's actually true, but the fact that people claim it to be true makes it interesting. And there's chapels and hospitals and minor things like check-ins and security and so on, which have nothing to do with the actual act of taking off and landing. But an airport to us represents an example of a multi-sided open platform where people can participate in a number of ways in the platform and there are opportunities to make money. So how does this happen? And where would you find the openness in an airport? One good example for me is about single sign-on. But when you arrive at an airport, you can use the same passport in any airport that you arrive at. And I don't mean Microsoft's passport. And then that's exchanged for a token in the shape of a boarding pass, which all the other participants within the airport will use to identify you. So when you buy something in a shop and they want to verify that it's okay for you to buy that duty-free good, they look at your boarding pass. So the participants in the platform are trusting the platform itself to provide, in this case, identity information. Similarly, airports thrive through interoperability. All airports have compatible gate configurations and so on for aeroplanes to slot into, and yet they might not. You could imagine a more proprietary world where a certain airport thinks that by having a spruced up, groovier gate system that's only compatible with Boeing aeroplanes that they'll be able to offer a finer service to their customers. But in fact that doesn't happen. In the case of airports, establishing common standards seems to work best. And similarly, there's a level of simplicity and consistency around airports. When you get off an aeroplane, you know where the toilet is, or you know how you're going to be able to find the toilet because there's standard signage used everywhere around the world. And also there's a level of shared housekeeping, where, for instance, the airport itself takes care of things like cleaning all the windows on behalf of all of the participants. So, based on our study of this detailed analogy, we then set out with Osmosoft to try and make some of this stuff happen within BT. So as I said, when Osmosoft was acquired by BT, it consisted only of me. And I hired 2 people that I'd worked with before, 2 people who were part of the TiddlyWiki community, and brought in a bunch of people who were already at BT and had an interest in open source. And the approach that we take with Osmosoft is to be highly public and transparent. So BT being such a large organization, it turns out that in a big hierarchical organization, it's incredibly hard to communicate from the top down. You get a kind of Chinese whispers effect, where by the time some engineer on the ground has heard your message, it's not necessarily clear that he's getting the message that you intended. So we deal with that by talking to the public internet at large. You can go to osmosoft.com and see a lot of details about what we do, real blog and Twitter and so on. And that is breakthrough stuff for a company like BT. Engineering teams within BT tend to, as I say, be constrained to hoard and be private about their ideas. We also try and share everything that we do. So one of our responsibilities is open source governance within BT, making sure that the obstacles to... So there's a big demand for open source without us doing anything. Engineers all over the world can see the advantages of participating in open source communities. But they feel within big organizations like BT that they're constrained, that they're not allowed to participate in that way. So a key part of our job is to clear those obstacles out of the way for us. So I'm going to close now, but I'd just like to say that a lot of you out there will also be working for enterprises. And a key part of our mission is to communicate and share with other enterprises. So I'd urge you to get in touch. If you find that anything that I said is familiar, please go to osmosoft.com, find out more about what we do and get in touch. Thank you very much.